Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. I would like to run you through an overview of Microsoft 365 Admin Center and specifically SharePoint Admin Center, and basically the troubleshooting things that we can do as sysadmins or support engineers. As the case may be, when we're trying to solve some certain problems that could arise in regards to SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. What you see here basically is the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which is only accessible by administrators in the organizations. So it's expected that at this stage that you should have an administrative role. Should you want to give a particular user in your organization an administrative role, you would just simply log into admin.microsoft.com, and it takes you there. You log in, you authenticate, and it brings you here. So when you are in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center platform, what you would do next is to go to roles. All right, so in roles we can navigate to role assignment, where we administer or assign specific role to different administrators or ITs in our organization. So in a typical large business where we have multiple IT personnel, you can assign different roles to them. So basically you can come here and look for say domain name administrator. You can go and assign a specific person to exchange administrator. This is typically what is actually happening. In a case where it's a small medium enterprise, where there is a chief executive officer, you can assign to the chief executive officer the global reader, to save the admin, to save them the stress of technicalities. Hence the reason why they employ us. You just give them global admin reader role. That's it. They don't really need much here, guys. So we have a lot of roles that we can assign typically in our organization. So remember, guys, that as a support person or an admin, if you are trying to solve a problem that has to do with your users OneDrive or SharePoint, you must have either the global admin role or a SharePoint administrator role, which is here. Go to S, it's arranged alphabetically, and then you see SharePoint administrator. Now, also you may need to assign to the global admin certain roles to access certain admin centers, such as purview, such as compliance, and such as Intune as well. So the global admin has access to all these particular roles basically. So we also have other roles, administrative units. Now, administrative units just simply connotes that you would actually want the administrative units to show in the app tile. So I wanted to show here so that it's easy for navigation when I'm trying to manage my tenancy. So I can add administrative roles for different admin centers. So here I have security, compliance, endpoint manager, which is now Intune. We have identity, which was formerly Azure Active Directory, has now become Entra Admin Center. We have Exchange, which still remains Exchange Online Admin Center. We have SharePoint, which is SharePoint Admin Center, and Teams. So I will click on SharePoint, which takes me here. So in the SharePoint Admin Center, we have a variety of things that we can perform as administrators here. Here we see an overview of the different activities that is currently going on in the organization level. So we have different levels when it comes to SharePoint and OneDrive. We start by saying we have the tenancy level, we have the tenancy level or the organization level. Are we following? Then after we navigate to the organization level, then we move to the SharePoint ecosystem. How do we interact with the SharePoint ecosystem? Very simple, guys. I'm going to switch to a user who have given a license by the name Adobe. So here I'm signed into Adobe, uh, and then logs into office.com. From office.com of this particular user, just wait for it to open. All I just need to do is to click on the waffle, the app launcher on the top right left, and launch. The moment this user launches SharePoint application, this user is no longer interacting with the organization level. The user is interacting with the SharePoint ecosystem. It navigates this user to a particular place called the SharePoint Start page. In other words, this user has now navigated to the SharePoint Start page. In this SharePoint Start page, on the left hand side navigation, we can see a variety of functions that can be performed by this user. This user can create a news post, a page, a site, a document, a spreadsheet, and so on. The user can access existing lists that he or she is a part of. This user can go to My Files, right? Which is linked to OneDrive. As you can see, OneDrive hyphen the name of the user. Then we have news. All right, so if perhaps this particular user has made some certain news post, or is a part of a team that rolls out news posts on certain timelines, all right, it can all be seen here. This user can also go to sites that he or she is a member of. For example, you can see there's only one site called Demo that this user has access to. And we also have another one called the landing. The landing basically is a default hub site that gives a very good idea of what we call an intranet-based site. We'll come to it later. And then here you can see the home button, which connotes SharePoint Start page. By clicking on the SharePoint Start page, it takes us still to the same place. Now, what can we do here? We have two options by default, meaning that whether you're an administrator or not, as long as you have been given a license, you have access to the SharePoint Start page. It cannot be shut down by the admin. It cannot. Now, also, we can create a site by seeing this Create Site button. We click on it, and it gives us the opportunity to create two kinds of sites. We can create either a team site or a communication site. What is basically the difference between both? The team site is for internal collaboration, team building, teamwork, and so on. Very private. The communication site is also private but gives a broader audience, usually used as the landing page, and then we navigate using team sites connected to it. Both of them function excellently well. However, the team site comes to what we call a Microsoft 365 group, guys. Okay? Excuse me. So now let's go back to the SharePoint Admin Center, which is by navigating back to our global admin. I want to do an illustration on the Microsoft whiteboard, but it's not opening. So I will just come here back to the SharePoint Admin Center. As you can see, like I mentioned, it gives us an overview. Now I can see on the left hand side OneDrive file activity, and you can see the viewed or edited. It is very good reporting. We can export this report, we can view it, and what it tells us is the amount of space that each user is consuming per time across our tenant. We also have access to our inbox that affects SharePoint and OneDrive, which means we can see updates that Microsoft is rolling out, guys. So what do we see here? We can see latest updates of Microsoft SharePoint. For example, we can see this one. Collaborate on SharePoint pages and news with what? Co-authoring. So if we want to activate co-authoring, where we want multiple users to co-author a single item, we can see the update about this particular feature. We have SharePoint Online enhancements to text web parts. All right, we have Microsoft introducing custom fonts. Nice. Prevent. We can also expand these message center, and what we notice is that it actually takes us to where the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, because that's where it's pulling that data from using APIs. Now we also have OneDrive usage, and you can see 4% active OneDrive accounts. Now this is very handy for administrators, guys. And what this does basically for us is very simple. Let me explain. If I need to know the amount of storage used, all right, across my tenant, I can come here to find out the OneDrive usage. For example, it could be that users are complaining extensively back to back that their storage is gone, and this is usually the problem of OneDrive, guys. You exhaust the OneDrive storage fast. Users can be uploading certain things that may not be relevant to their job descriptions, and so we need alternative or ways we can solve that kind of problem. Because what does it do? What's the implication that it does on the entire health of our tenant is that it slows it down. It affects latency. Yes, it does. Okay, so I'll come to that. But it's good information that we can derive from here, and that's the point I'm trying to drive, guys. So we navigate down and we can see other useful informations. Okay, let's assume that we can see active users, guys. So active users, Microsoft Teams, Exchange, Microsoft 365 apps, and so on. Depending on the applications that they use more, it gives us the data analytics of the apps that are utilized the most. Okay, so let us see what else we can see from here. By going to the left hand side navigation under sites category, when we click on active sites, it gives us a more detailed information about the certain application sites that have been created either by the admins or by users. In other words, any user who creates a site, it will show up here. I'm going to switch to my user called Adobe and create a communication site. So when I'm creating a site, I have a variety of what templates I can choose from. Simple. So I can choose any of these ones that I want, guys. So let me say I pick volunteer center, okay, and then I say use template. All right, and then I just give it the name. Environment. Okay. Oh, guys, it can be anything. Okay, so then click on next, and for a communication site, it just goes straight to create site without giving us the option to add members at the early stage, but we can add the members later on when we have finished creating the site. Now remember, the person who is creating the site is just a normal user on the tenant. Okay, so let that finish creating. Here we go. So we have our site. Oh, I think I should change the color to green, right? Since we're talking about environment. But guys, please, the purpose of this is just for illustration and not necessarily that we're creating and doing some development of a site. Okay, just a simple one. Okay, now we'll go back to SharePoint start page here and create a team site. Okay, so I should click on here, create site, and this time around we're going to choose a team site, guys. Okay, so I'm going to choose a so again we have templates, pre-built templates that we can use, and then we can also choose from the standard theme. So I will just go with the standard theme, but I like colorful things, so maybe we can just go with project management here. This template, use template, okay, and then we'll give it the name project management. What project are we trying to manage? So let's just give it the name project management, guys. Alright, and then please take note that when I type in the name, it just populates a group email address by default, and then I click on next, and then it takes us to privacy settings, where we can set it to private, which connotes only members can access the site, and then public, anyone in the organization can access the site. What simply means is that if I put it on public and a different user in the business searches for the site's name project management, they will see it. But if I set it to private, they would not see it. It's only members who I have added to the site that will be able to see it. I can also change the language preference depending on the language you're comfortable with. You can select a different language preference. I'll go ahead and click on create site, and then this gives us the option to add a member. So here I'm going to add my global admin as a member of the site, and then it says that one member has been added, and you can see he has member role. I could change him to become an owner of the site, but no, just leave it as default. I'll select finish. And the beautiful thing about SharePoint framework is the fact that you don't need to necessarily know a lot of designing or coding. Alright, it's very useful and handy for your respective employees. It's good that sysadmins encourages users to leverage on the fact that the license given to them comes with creating of SharePoint sites and access to OneDrive. Now, although there could be some challenges that this can cause for us, however, the case may be that it has a much broader advantage. The advantage being that people can work on different projects, people can collaborate seamlessly at any time of the day, anywhere in the world. All right, and I have created a project management site which can now be made available to as many members as this particular owner wants to have access to it, and also externally. So I want to now switch back to the SharePoint Admin Center, and in the active sites, which is the first part of the category, we're going to refresh these, and we should see those two sites the other user has created. So we see that we should be seeing the two sites we created, called environment and project management, show up here. Let's refresh to refresh. I could either use the search bar here, or just scroll down. I have the option to filter from the respective items. I can filter Microsoft 365 group sites connected. I can filter classic sites. I can filter the largest sites. This is very handy filtering that allows me to know, as an administrator, the health status of our tenants in regards to SharePoint and OneDrive resources. So I'll just scroll down here and look for, now you see environmental control site is showing here, and as well project management, which is P. We'll scroll down to P and we see project management. Now remember that I did not add the admin as a member to the site, so let's see whether he will have access to it. So this is it. I will just open it. If what happens by default when a member is not added as a member of a site, or when other members share a file, a folder, or an item from a site they have access to a person who does not have access, whether the person is internal or external. Guys, you will always get this information by default. If you're not getting this, then it means that that person may have been granted access before. You will always get this message that says you need permission to access this site, irrespective of whether you're a global admin. It is a good feature by default that Microsoft puts and ensures that the framework has priority of security by the owner of the site. In other words, the admin will have to request access. We're not saying we're not going to give you access, but you have to request. It's possible they don't want you to gain access to that site for certain reasons. It could be sensitive, it could be specific to a particular department that you're not a part of or you're not preview to. So it all makes sense to have this check. However, going back to the active sites, the global admin can give himself access by just simply opening the profile of the respective sites, navigating to membership. Now, under membership, he sees all the categories that he would normally see on the site level. So he sees the site admin, he can decide to add himself as a site admin. He can decide to come to site owners and add himself. He can even remove the person. Alright, so he can add other members that he would like to give access to the site. He can add visitors as well. Okay, so he can also go to settings, navigate the settings, and change the external file sharing behavior. He can decide to say, I want this to be set to only people in your organization because I don't want people to be sending using anyone with a link. There could be an advantage for anyone with a link where anyone with a link simply connotes that you're not required to authenticate. Now, if I want to set it to anyone with a link, then it means that my members on my site can share to anyone with a link without authenticating. I can also click on more settings, and this expands for me on the site level the kind of behavior or policy I would like to set. Okay, please note that the settings here on the site level overrides the organization level. So where do we access the organization level sharing policy? We're going to come to that shortly. So if I delete a site here, where does it go to? I can delete by clicking here. It goes to deleted sites. That's where it goes to, deleted sites. So we have other options like categories like containers, and this feature actually comes in handy when you are trying to use for file storage containers for your apps. Okay, so we have policies, and this is where I'm talking about where for policies you can change the permissive level for your sharing policy. So we have most permissive all the way to least permissive, which means that OneDrive cannot be more permissive than SharePoint. Now, this is a testament to the fact that OneDrive is existing on the framework of SharePoint. So, like, see, I cannot increase it despite me trying to click on this and taking it up. I cannot because it's controlled by SharePoint framework. But SharePoint can be more permissive than OneDrive. What's the implication of this, guys? The implication of this, as you can see clearly written, is each permissive level determines the authentication and authorization that happens giving access to the files. There are 3 questions that you should always ask. Who needs access? What kind of access does the person need? And where does the person need access to? In answering those 3 questions, it answers to permission, identity, and where location. So if we set it to most permissive level, we're indirectly saying have access to anywhere. We don't need to authenticate you. What if there could be a security challenge and breach? But if we set it to new and existing guests, what happens here is that they will need to verify using a code. That is very healthy. If we set it to existing guests only, it means that I would have to have put you as a guest on my admin center in Microsoft 365, and then you will receive an invitation which you have to accept before you can access our resources. This is also very healthy and secure. Then we have the most permissive, the least permissive, which is only people in your organization. Is very restrictive here, and all these changes or settings we're doing is actually where on the organization level. So we can expand external sharing settings here, guys, and what we see here is that we can limit external sharing by domain. This is very handy, guys. So I can say block domains from where gmail.com, and then I go to the next line and I say block domain from where, from yahoo.com, and so on. Okay, so we can block specific domain. Now this will take effect in 24 hours most times. Policies that we set in Microsoft 365 takes two hours or max 24 hours. So I can put as many. That's what I'm saying here. And what it does is that when my users are trying to share to any of those domains, it will block it. Do you understand, guys? It will block it. So the next one we have is allow guests to share items they don't own. Be very wary of this because it's always selected by what, by default. And for I'm very secure. I'm very security conscious. So I always like to advise clients that this is not a healthy option to enable. It could suffice for certain case scenarios, but however, holistically, allowing guests to share items they don't own, really? Nah, I don't buy it. Reason being that we have come to see, based on experience of troubleshooting and working for over 3 years plus on cases, what I've come to see is that this causes a lot of problem. So guys, if you're watching and you are in this kind of situation, please go and check if it is selected, all right, and stop it. It's not healthy. Now what it can cause is that you may not be able to have control as the global admin of what is being shared. That is it. And it can infuse some malware or ransomware on your network. Now guest access to a site or OneDrive will appear automatically after these many days. Alright, so if it's an option that you see to be fanciful, please go ahead and do a test on it before you make it public to your production environment. Now we have another one that says people who use a verification code must re-authenticate after this many days. I like this. It's just a good check where people may be doing some very malicious things with certain access we give them, but this will just completely wipe it off. It's very good. I like it. Now we also have the sharing policy that affects file and folder links, and it's just very direct, that says specific people, only the people in where only specific people, people in your organization, and anyone. All right, so we're going to do a test later on in the next videos, all right, on how all these things play out. But this is just an overview that I'm just trying to show you, so it's nothing specific where we're going to be diving and or saying. I just want to show you where we can find what. Now in the scenario where your users or members of staff are working remotely, or due to what we call a BCP that has been activated, you may want as an admin to be proactive enough to initialize what we call certain measures that would ensure operation is still running. Yes, so giving access to SharePoint resources and OneDrive is very paramount, where we need to control the kind of devices our users use, especially if we don't give them domain joined devices like laptops that are running on our network and we have installed VPNs on it, you can come here and set a policy that would control unmanaged devices. It will restrict access from devices that are not compliant or joined to a domain. So what we have here is that we have different policies that we can use. We have free, allow full access from desktop apps, mobile apps, and the web. Allow limited web only access. So I don't want them to download things. I don't want them to download things. I don't want them to use the client versions because it may be corrupted and it may just cause a problem for them. So I just want them to interact, collaborate when it comes to SharePoint on OneDrive, files or things online, on the web only. I will set this policy, guys. That's what it means. Okay. Okay, yes. So this particular last option, block access, is used for cases where you're trying to do an overall maintenance. For example, if there's a disaster that happens in your data center, you can block access where, or if there's a theft or some sort, you can block access, and this is very handy because it locks everybody out from certain files. You cannot download anything, you cannot even access anything once I enable this policy. So, but what happens is that these policies, the three of them, creates a conditional access policy in Azure. So I can navigate to the Azure portal and manage that particular policy by either disabling it or enabling it, or even excluding the global admin from being enforced in this policy. Okay. We have idle session sign out, which is very good. You can sign out inactive users, blah blah blah. Very handy. Network location. I had a customer who this was their case, and basically they were just trying to find out how they can set up their framework before users go to work from home. And this was what I suggested. I said, why not activate specific IP address ranges? You can get these IP address ranges from your ISP. That is your ISP serving you with internet in your organization, your domain, your site. They'll give you the ranges where you just upload it here and then you save. What it simply means is that any IP that is not coming from this range, voila, it would not connect. Exactly. Okay, so we have apps that don't use modern authentication, block access from. So these are apps that don't use. We can specify. We can say, oh, block access or allow access, basically. Okay. And then we have OneDrive access restriction. This is a new feature that is on E5, and it's very useful. And look at what it does. Use these settings to allow only users in specific security groups to do what? Access OneDrive content. In other words, if I don't put you in that security group, you will not have access to OneDrive at all. I like it. Alright, so then we come to settings. So in settings, what do we see in settings? A lot of things here, guys. A lot of things we see in settings here. We're going to learn. Alright, so what we see here in the settings are different things we can change. I would like to draw your attention to the basic ones. Well, not really basic, but essential. The first one will be where we can disable the option or hide the option for our users to create a SharePoint site, and why. So if we come to site creation here, it allows us to change the option for users to what? To create a site. So I will disable it and you will see the effect of this, guys. Save and then navigate back to my user and then go to SharePoint start page. So here, just look at this now. This button, create site button, would disappear shortly. So I'll refresh again. I'll refresh again and it's gone. So you can see the two sites we created, right? So this is a dashboard. So its SharePoint start page basically does a lot of things. It allows us to see the site we're following, all the sites that we created. Secondly, it allows us to see the news post, the list, and also to even create any of those. So what I did in the admin center by unchecking the option has disabled this feature of creating a site. So someone may ask, but Obina, why do we need to do this? Good question. All right, I would like you to watch a video up, here that I've done before, in which I explained the reason for Microsoft 365, an overview of groups, and also custom script. So what it does is that it allows users to create multiple sites in different ways. So since I, at the admin, have disabled the option for this user can go and create a site from a Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to launch Microsoft Teams. Excuse me. I'll launch Teams. I will also navigate to the Outlook of this user. And this is just a typical random use case where typically users would even go. Many users don't even know about creating a SharePoint site. What they use mostly is Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, right, and Outlook, and a lot of other applications like OneNote, like Planner, and so on, or Sway, or Microsoft Loop, or Microsoft List application. So in here, I will just come here. I will come here, for example, and go to new group, new groups. So I click on new groups, and the group, I will click on new group. So I'm going to create a new group. So it's a mailbox where we're trying to do fundraising. So I could just call it fundraising. Okay. So I'll create a group that will have a shared mailbox, fundraising, and then I'll click on create. The default settings, I'll leave it as private. It's fine. Description, I will leave it empty. If you want to put a description on yours, please feel free. It's fine as well, guys. So I will just add some members here. All right, and then click on add. All right, so I've created a group and I've added a group. So I'll refresh so that the group will show here. I'm seeing an error. I missed a step. So okay, fundraising, so it's here. Good. Then Teams. Let's switch to Teams. I'm logged in as Adobe. Yes, so some people call it Adobe. So for short, it's Adobe. it's a Nigerian name. Ada simply means the first daughter. So for my viewers who are in a different country, it means first daughter, Ada. Yeah, we in Africa, we have very interesting names, right? And the names actually have some very interesting meanings, and it just memories. Yes, good. So you can put in the comments and tell me, how it's like in your respective location as well, where you're from. All right. If you're from other parts of Africa, please let me know what yours is, and other part of the world, let me know what yours is as well. It's so great to learn different cultures. Alright, so I'm refreshing my Teams for this particular user. Let's see. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm trying to buttress here. So I'm going to switch back to my global admin, pardon me. So this is my global admin. And remember, we're on settings, site creation, and in site creation we disable the option. Alright, users can create SharePoint sites, so we disable that option. And then if I navigate back to active sites, take note of what you're going to see. Alright, so if I go here, you can see fundraising. How did it all of a sudden appear here? The reason why it appeared is because when a group is created from Outlook, when a team is created from Microsoft Teams, when a planner or a new task is created from Planner and any other Microsoft 365 application, what happens is that it automatically creates a SharePoint site. It is a full-blown functioning site. And well, the downside of things is that as one particular user does this, multiple users can do the same likewise. The problem it causes for sysadmins is that it's going to blow up your storage. I'm telling you the truth, it's going to blow up your storage when you do not have appropriate control of how users directly or indirectly create a SharePoint site. Remember that this user only created a group from Outlook, had nothing to do with going to site because you've even disabled it. This user actually just went and created a group for a good cause, fundraising. It could be any project, guys. I'm just using that as an illustration. And when we come to active sites, what we see immediately is that it's going to reflect there. And again, the admin doesn't have access by default. So you can imagine the task, the headache this can cause, where you have as your job description, you must monitor the storage usage, you must monitor what people create, what people don't create, what people are, opening to the external network, which is the internet, from your own local network. It's very important, guys. So let's go back to this place. Now, what we have understood is that this site creation disablement does not necessarily stop users from doing that. Alright, so I would like you to watch my video on custom script because I shared the PowerShell where we can now use to prevent users from creating sites. I'll do a demonstration on that later, but you can watch the video in the notification above. Custom scripts. That's what's happening here. So we'll run the PowerShell. It disables the option using a security group. When we put you in the security group, then you can create a group. If we remove you out of the security group, you cannot create a group, and that's more control. That's better, for admins to use. Okay. So if there's any justifiable reason why a department will need a site, they would approach you, all right, and then you create the site for them based on the specification given by the head of department, and give access or admin access or owners access to the head of department. Simple. It all depends again on your flow of permissions in your respective organizations, guys. Please take note of that, as it's very vital. Another notifiable thing we come across when having issues with SharePoint on OneDrive is retention. I hear a lot of complaints from customers, generally clients, who say, oh, we increase our retention policy, but how come we're not able to retrieve what we deleted some couple of months or days or years ago? It's simple. By default, you have 30 days. Microsoft gives 30 days. As you can see, it's 30 days by default. What is the implication of this? So I'm going to click on retention, and I will explain this in detail. Please follow me. So Microsoft is saying that we can increase our retention for 30 days to 3,650 days, which is equivalent to 10 years. What it implies is that Microsoft is literally saying, Microsoft is literally saying that they would give us the option of holding back our. So what we have here is we can increase it from 30 days to 3,650 days. Okay. Now the changes we do here, guys, affects OneDrive. Okay, as you can see. Then where would we apply retention for SharePoint? It's in a different location. That location is called Microsoft Purview. Let me show you. So I'll navigate back to my Microsoft 365 Admin Center and go to Compliance. So in Compliance, when I open Compliance, it takes me to Purview. So let me allow that to open. Microsoft Purview. Now, in Microsoft Purview, we have more options than we saw or were able to see in SharePoint Admin Center. That's the point I'm trying to make here, guys. So when we navigate to Microsoft Purview, we navigate to policies. Under policies, we're going to see data retention. So under data category, we select data retention. So we see we have data loss prevention and retention. So we click on retention. Now under retention here, we have a lot of options. And in the options, we can now apply retention policies to SharePoint sites. Okay, so retention policies, as you can see on my own test environment, there are some policies that exist, and you can see it says personal financial pie, employee records, sensitivity, and so on. So let me just open one for you, navigate one for you, edit. Yes, so when you're creating a retention policy, you can give it any name, basically what you want it to do. Yes, what you want it to do. So I'm just going to show us this one and navigate around. Let's see. It's loading. I may have just clicked on the new one, so let me see if I can go back. So let me go back. Okay, so it has finished loading, so I click on next, click on next, click on next, and this is what I want to show you. It's inclusive by default when you enable or create a new policy, and it takes 24 hours, guys. So that is by the point when you're creating it takes 24 hours. So here you can see Exchange mailboxes, SharePoint Classic, and communication sites, and then you can see OneDrive accounts is enabled already, and then you see Microsoft 365 group mailboxes and sites. So which means if the site is connected to a Microsoft 365 group, it will automatically be protected by this policy. On the right hand side, under included, you can see by default it's inclusive. And then if I want to exclude a particular site, I could click on the edit button, and in the edit button, what am I searching for will be the name of the site. For example, I want to allow people in the sites that they create to be what, that they to make them delete things from it. So I will have to come here and exclude one of those sites I created. For example, environment. The environment connected to a Microsoft 365 group. Oh no, it's fundraising. So you can see fundraising here. Good. So if I select fundraising and I save, what it means is that I would now be able to delete things from it. But if I try to delete things from it, this policy would hold it back for a 30-day period. Okay. So if I click on next, I can also include other things. So if I click on next, we have the option where we can retain items for a specific period. So you can see 7 years. I can increase it to 10 years or customize to a specific day, month, or year. I can say after the retention reaches, do nothing, or retain items forever. It doesn't make any sense, but you have instances where this could be the case, where you want to depending on your sector, guys, please, it's not irrelevant. There's a reason why it's there. Say for example, you're using a government tenant. I mean, you don't want to be deleting archive things, right? You can retain them forever because of different administrations that could be coming, even a company and an enterprise, right? Exactly. So I'll cancel, and then we navigate back to the settings. Now, a very key thing to note is when a user leaves an organization, what happens? When the user leaves, the OneDrive is made available for 30 days period. That is to say, we can give that person's OneDrive to be managed by the manager or somebody else in the business. After 30 days, what happens is that the item goes into what we call an inactive state. When you try to access something from that person's OneDrive what's left, you get an error message, 404 not found. 404 not found. Exactly. Now, when that is gotten, what happens is that it will stay for a period of 93 days in total, meaning that the first period when I made the action of deleting a user from my tenant, it goes to a 30-day period wait in the deleted user state. In that state, I can still see it on my tenant, which means I can restore it back to an active state. I can restore it back and retention would automatically stop. Now, if I do not perform that action within 30 days and it enters day 31, it's no longer going to show in that particular deleted user state. It's going to now become invisible, but it's still on the tenant. What it simply means is that I no longer can access it using the GUI. I would then have to use PowerShell to access the availability of that account to confirm whether it is still within 93-day window. In day 33 or day 60 or day 61, we can't really tell because it is automatically counted and running on the background. That is to say, if it's within 93 days and we run PowerShell, it can tell us whether it is still available within the retention period. And what I can do when I find that it is still available is that the PowerShell would allow us bring it back to an active state so that we can back up. Meaning that the moment I bring it back to an active state, it does not stop the retention from reaching the end of that cycle. Good. It does not stop. Now, this is a lot of information, but please, I want you to just pause, rewind, and listen to it again and understand it and see how it relates with some of the issues that you may be experiencing as a sysadmin or a support engineer on your current client cases. I'm saying that when a user account is deleted, whether on premises or cloud, what is happening is that the retention becomes active. It's going to stay for 30-day period from the time the action was taken. After 30 days, it will move to an inactive state. You will not find it. You will get the message 404 not found error. It's possible that it is still within the 93-day window count. The only way we can confirm this fact is to use PowerShell. When we run PowerShell, okay, when we run PowerShell, the PowerShell allows us to know whether it is still within 93 days. Now, what I'm saying is that the moment you find from the PowerShell that it is still within 93 days, it will not show the specific date that is left. So it will just show you that, oh, it's still on the tenant. Bring it back to an active state. Do not hesitate, guys. Mike, do not hesitate. I had a client one time where we were able to find that the OneDrive account was still available, and I kept on emphasizing and insisting. I said, please immediately start backing up the content on that OneDrive. Move it to SharePoint site or to your local machine or to your or another person's OneDrive. Start backing up because you can never tell if the 93-day window count cycle will be the next hour. Exactly. So there is no need for time wasting, if you understand what I mean, guys. Right? Good. So the next one is storage limit. Storage limit. Please note that there are detailed articles and all these things that you can see handy. I'll try as much as possible to put the articles in the description when I for you guys. All right, please leave a comment and tell me, all right, in which areas you can relate with this. If you had a case or something, please put it in the comment for me. All right, and it will be very good to hear from you all. Now, what we see in storage limit here, it's another kind of issues that come up a lot in support cases where the sysadmins increase the storage by coming here or set a limit. What this allows us, as you can see, is that by default you have 1 terabyte storage. All users have 1 terabyte storage, okay, and you can increase it to 5 terabytes. Okay, see it here. Now, however, there is an extension of 5 terabytes to 25 terabytes if you are eligible. That is, if your tenant is eligible, Microsoft will let you know. So you don't need to do anything to qualify for it. Microsoft will let you know if your tenant is eligible for 25 terabyte storage. I get questions a lot where I say, oh, how can we request for 25 terabytes. You cannot request for 25 terabytes. It is when your tenant storage becomes eligible for it, you will be notified. One of the criteria that are looked at is the usage of your tenant storage. Right, so if it hasn't reached a certain capacity, right, you would not be invited or become eligible for it. Okay, so please, it's automatic. You don't need to pay anybody for it. All right, Microsoft will notify you through your message center ID. Okay, so we have 1 terabyte by default, and then we can increase it to 25 terabytes. So I can come here and set the limit. The good thing about setting limit is that you want to put certain resource control in check for your users, which means so they don't use it uncontrollably. They don't exhaust the storage too frequently, right? Now, when we do this here, what happens is that we still have a challenge when we come to Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So when we come to Microsoft 365 Admin Center, what we notice is that we are not able to increase the storage of the user. So this is what we do. We come here to Microsoft 365 Admin Center after setting the storage, and if there is a case or an instance where the user actually wants to increase the storage, what happens is that if the user storage has gotten exhausted, they will receive a message, a pop-up screen, saying you're out of storage. Contact your system administrator for assistance. So that's where, or that will be the point where they will now call you. What happens next, all right, listen, is that the admin can now come here where I'm currently at, which is Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and locate the affected user based on if they've raised ticket for you. Then you navigate to OneDrive. When you navigate to OneDrive tab, if the OneDrive is provisioned, you can see this OneDrive is not provisioned, and it simply means the user has not logged into OneDrive. So let me use another account that has done that. Let's look for Adobe. Okay, so I'll click on Adobe for our illustration. OneDrive. So here, as you can see in the OneDrive, this OneDrive has been provisioned because the user has accessed it. I've come to where? Storage. And then I click on it. Can you see the storage limit is showing for this user as 3 terabytes or 3 gigabytes? So I can come here and say, I want to increase the storage for this user because the user has reached capacity, and I increase it to 5 terabytes. I give the person a full 5 terabytes. And then I save. But this does not happen to all users or all subscription. In other words, this particular subscription is only available to who? It's only available to SharePoint Plan 2 users. Meaning that based on your subscription plan, if you're on a business plan, if you're on an E1 enterprise, if you're on an educational A1 plan, if you're on a finance F1 plan or a GCC1 license, it comes with a SharePoint Plan 1. SharePoint Plan 1 does not allow you to increase storage. So although you can increase the limit, when you come here on the SharePoint Plan 1, you will get an error when you're trying to increase it beyond 1 terabyte, guys. So if that's the case you're experiencing, please know that it's because here when you come to billing and you go to licenses, you notice that you're on a business plan or a business basic or standard plan. Business basic or standard plan does not come with the ability for you to increase your storage for your respective users. All right, you have to be on an E3 or an E5 or an A3 or an A5 or an F3 or an F5 or a GCC3 or a GCC5 subscription, because each of those subscription, by the time I go into the user, I want to show you the SharePoint plan that it comes with. It has two types, either a SharePoint Plan 1 or SharePoint Plan 2. Okay, so the SharePoint Plan 1 does not allow for storage increase by default. There's nothing you can do about it, guys. There's nothing you can do about it. So if I go to this user and I select licenses and apps, So under licenses and apps, I expand apps and I scroll because it is arranged alphabetically. I scroll to the bottom and go to look for S. You immediately see that it has a SharePoint Plan 2 E3 and also SharePoint Plan 2 E5 because I have the two on this tenant, guys. So I have Office 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E5. Any of them will work. Are you following, guys? Okay. But if I come here and I see SharePoint Plan 1, it's an indication that the subscription, which is the type of subscription done, is not compatible with storage increments, guys. It's not. Alright, what do? You can now purchase a standalone SharePoint Plan 2. Simple. Okay? Good. And that solves the problem of storage for you. Hope that was helpful. Alright, so let's go back. Now we have the OneDrive sync. The OneDrive sync, alright, basically I talked about it in the previous video. Alright, the video about unable to sync OneDrive and SharePoint libraries. Please go and watch it. It's very helpful. I did a series on it, part 1, part 2, part 3. Please watch the series so that you can have a good grasp on the OneDrive sync client. Alright, so in the Admin Center, SharePoint Admin Center, another place that we come to, aside from content services, where we can create temp sets and taxonomies, we can also create content type. What are content types? Content types are basically the structures we create so that we can make it deployable to newly created or existing sites. All right, so it's easy for site owners to quickly adopt our content type. So it allows us to maintain our branding. It allows us to maintain our structure across the entire organization for consistency. Now the temp store, which is taxonomy, is where we can create, is what we now use to create that structure. We can create our temp sets, we can create our our various organogram, right? We can even add navigations to it, basically, where we can use it to link to different sites. Like you see this one here, I created departments, and we can have job title and location. Alright, and we can call it out on a site. I'm going to do another video of these guys later. I just want to show you where you are able to come and create it. Now in the taxonomy, you must elevate yourself as a global admin to so that you can start adding or contributing on a temp store, meaning that you must add yourself as an admin before you can do this. If you're not an admin, you will not. So by going to taxonomy, you see admins. You have to come here to admins, click on edit, and then add yourself as a global admin, as an admin here. You can add, you can decide to, so once you do that, then you can create different groups and then create different temp sets. Okay. So I will jump to more features. In more features, there are a lot of things that we do here. One of the things we do here is user profiles. We also can configure search across the entire organization and also apps. Basically, what we see is that we can add and remove admins for each user's OneDrive, disable OneDrive creation for some users. In the search, we can also control or configure how search behaves across the entire organization. Okay, so here, if I click on user profiles, what it does basically, it allows me to find out who can create a site, who has access to OneDrive. I can manage it that way. So let's just have a look at what we can do here. So I click on user profiles, it takes me to user profiles, and a couple of things we can see here. The first is manage user properties, but I'm going to call your attention to manage user profiles and manage user permissions. Case scenario number one: if a user is trying to, he logs into office.com and launches OneDrive, and the OneDrive navigates to, or rather redirects to Delve page, just ensure you come here and go to manage user permissions. Now under manage user permissions, what you're trying to say here or do is that you want to give the ability of that user to create a personal site. So I will search for the user here, or I can just use this option that says browse, which I prefer. Search for the user. the search box that comes up. And then add, click on OK. Alright, it's added. Then click on add. And now everyone except external user is a default account that is used to manage the entire SharePoint, so you can just leave that. And the moment I click on add, you can see here that I can now configure permissions for this user, and I can say I want this user to have the ability to create site personally, follow people, and the rest. So what you do in that case scenario that I gave, which is a user logs into office.com, launches OneDrive application from the waffle, and it redirects to Delph page or redirects somewhere else, meaning that the OneDrive application is not linking to the person's OneDrive account. Please come and enable this option: 1, 1, 2, and 3, and then you click on OK. Give it some time, tell the user to sign out from everywhere, and then the person, it should work. That should fix the problem for you. Okay, now if I want to give another person's OneDrive to, I want to gain access into another person's OneDrive, I'll click on manage user profiles here, and in manage user profiles here I will search for the user. Click on it. So it's going to search for the user and comes out. Just click here, and then select manage site collection owners, which is the last option that comes out from that drop down. So it's going to open this small window that says site collection owners, and I'm going to draw your attention to certain things here. Number one, you can see that the primary site collection owner belongs to the person who owns it, and then the secondary belongs to the person as well. However, by design, you can see here I can add multiple people as secondary owners. The moment I decide to remove her from here and then add somebody else or myself as the global admin, it automatically gives ownership of her OneDrive, of this person's OneDrive, to me. Alright, so this is not good practice, because I mean it could cause some problem, right? However, for support purposes, when we are trying to resolve cases that has to do with OneDrive, we could tell the person to bring the affected user on the call on board, so that the person can log in and we can assist the person on the OneDrive. However, if the person is not available, then we need consent from the global admin if it's not going to be a breach to their compliance policies. And then you can give yourself access as the global admin. Then we solve the problem, and please remove your access completely from the person's OneDrive and give the person back access. Okay, so we're going to look at it some other time as to the things that we can do there. Now, all those things that I've been showing you so far, we can actually use PowerShell, right? We can use PowerShell. So this is just an overview of the SharePoint Admin Center. In this video, what we learned basically was with the roles that allows us to gain access to the SharePoint Admin Center. We said only 2 admins can access this: the global admin or the SharePoint admin. We said if you are a Teams admin or a different admin, you occupy a different admin role, we said you go to Microsoft 365 Admin Center and give yourself the SharePoint admin role or the global admin role, as the case may be. The next thing that we learned was that we learned how to create a site from the SharePoint start page. We create a site from the SharePoint start page. By default, when a user logs into office.com, they can click on the app launcher from office.com or anywhere, and then launch SharePoint app. When they launch SharePoint app here, it immediately takes them to the SharePoint start page. The SharePoint start page is where they would now be able to create sites from 2 templates by default, either the team site or the communication site. Now, this applies as well to any user as long as they have license. Okay. Then we learned that a user can actually create a group from Outlook. A user can create teams for Microsoft Teams, and if those are done, the active sites in the SharePoint Admin Center is an overview of all the sites or connected sites that are created. And this was where we saw the group that was created that had nothing to do with SharePoint, but all of a sudden it got connected to SharePoint. In other words, this is the kind of scenario you will be having to manage as an admin, where you are seeing your tenant bloating as a result of a lot of people creating different things in that across the entire organization. Imagine a case where you have 1,005 users you're managing, and 1,000. Let me just put this in a small number. 5 people create multiple things. That's going to be a headache. All right. So we said that the way to prevent these is to use a security group and disable the option to create a group using PowerShell. Please check again in my previous video on custom scripting, how I explained it in that series, and I will drop the script for you there, so you can check that out, watch it, and practice it, how to block. So this would be helpful for that. Then we moved on to learn that if you delete a site, it goes to deleted sites. And then we talked about policies, sharing. In sharing, we emphasized about the dependence of OneDrive on SharePoint and the permissive level styling. We saw that we can access multiple options from where? From our more external sharing settings. We also learned that based on the strength of the site would always override the external policy set across the entire organization. Meaning that if I come to the site that's created here and I click on it and I go to sharing, I can completely change it to what I want that is different from the entire organization level. As you can see, it has the same policies. Anyone new and existing guest only, and so on. It always overrides the organization. Then we went to access control. In access control, we learned that the use case here would be instances where you're working remotely and you want your users or members to access things through a secure network or through their devices. So you want to set policies of unmanaged devices, network location, idle sessions, and the rest. You can also restrict OneDrive to a certain security group. Then we went on to settings, where we saw how we can disable the option of creating sites. We also saw options for retention, storage limit, and sync. There are more options that we're going to see later on, alright, where we can go to classic settings page. In the classic settings page is where you can enable custom scripting. This is also shared in the in that particular script. So if I come here and I scroll down to classic settings, you see custom scripts, allow custom scripts, and it's enabled for me. Allow users to run custom script on self-service created sites. Yes. Okay, so you can go and watch that video, please. It's going to really expand knowledge on that. So we now went down to more features, and in more features we learned we only saw user profiles. Later on we're going to touch on other things. Pretty much straightforward, but emphasis is on the user profiles, because this is where we can manage user profiles for their OneDrive, as well as help solve their permission problem when they cannot launch OneDrive from the app, from the wire phone, and it's redirecting. Please go and fix it using the user profiles option. Okay. So hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for your time. I am really grateful for the support you've been giving me so far. Please, I need you all to take me to the road to 150 subscribers. 150 subscribers. Okay. Please like, please comment, please share. All right, to your family, your friends that will find this very helpful. Thank you. The road to 150 subscribers.